Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where sales leaders teach you what's working for them and how you can build it yourself.
This episode of the Predictable Revenue Podcast is brought to you by our sales coaching and consulting services. Are you looking to create repeatable, scalable, and predictable revenue? We've helped thousands of companies grow their business with tailored expert advice backed by testing to ensure they establish the best practices that'll work for them. Head over to bit.ly/predictable revenue coaching to learn more. So having worked in sales all of her career, and the majority working in the male-dominated sector of automotives with 100 million pound sales targets, and having the proven success of creating successful six-figure online training consultancy business, she felt empowered to stand up and demonstrate that sales does not have to be sleazy. It doesn't have to be egotistical. And quickly scaling her second successful business to six figures and beyond from the confines of her front room during the COVID-19 pandemic, she became inspired to prove and embody the reality that sales and online coaching space can be easy, not sleazy. And that's why we asked her on. So Rachel Howourth, welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. You can definitely introduce me again. That sounded great.
Thank you. Well, I'm so excited to have you on. Let's dive right into it, Rachel. Tell me about high ticket clients and how you differentiate those from other clients.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I think it's always a good place to start to really define what do we mean by a high ticket client. And in my world, I kind of draw that line at £3,000 or dollars. So you might be able to tell by my accent, everybody, I am from the UK. So when I talk about money, I usually talk about dollars because I sell in dollars, but we'll talk about dollars today, but I am actually from the UK. So I don't want to confuse anybody. But I normally draw that line at $3,000. Anything below that, I would call, low or mid ticket on your value ladder. Anything above 3,000, I call high ticket. Now, the way that a high ticket client is different, there's a number of ways, a number of reasons that a high ticket client is different. Firstly, they know what they want. Like a high ticket buyer is very clear about the problem that they have, very clear about the solution that they want, which means that we need to use different language, different attraction strategies. And really, and I'm sure we're going to get into the detail of this, what we need to cover in those client attraction strategies is the three things that your high ticket client really, really wants. And I call them the three S's because it means they're easier to remember. The first one is speed. They want speed of result. The second is simplicity. They want things to be boiled down to a simple framework, a simple process. And the third one is security. They want to know that they are not the guinea pig. They are going to be investing in something that's tried, tested, proven, been done before. They want to know what's possible. So they want the security and the reassurance that they are not testing something, that they're going to get that result that they so desperately want and are happy to pay for. So the three S's are the significant thing that we need to have running through all of our content, all of our community building, all of our language, the way that we show up, everything.
Cool. So walk me through then how, when you're thinking about building content, let's start on content and we'll kind of move into building the community. But when building content and I guess trying to create that online presence, how are you showing up in that way so that you can attract those high ticket clients?
Yeah, so I would say, to give everybody some really practical tips around how to do this, just make sure that when you're creating content, you're not trying to overly educate. So a lot of the time in the online space, we hear that we've got to lead with value, that we've got to build content that educates. And my suggestion to you would be that if you're somebody that's showing up with lots of how-to content, that you might end up disempowering the high ticket buyer. So if you are constantly talking about how to do this and how to do that, rather than saying, I understand that you want this, and I understand that you want this really, really quickly, if you do too much how-to content, you end up disempowering. The other thing is, social proof. We've got to be sharing constantly and regularly that this outcome, the result, the outcome that they want has been achieved before. So we've got to show them not just what's possible, but show them that it's possible for them within the time frame that they want it. So, for example, if you are selling an online course that you've built to take 12 weeks, and actually you could get them the result in 3 weeks, they want to know that that process can be shortened, that they can get it in 3 weeks. They don't want fluff. They don't want BS. They just want to get to the result without any of the noise, any of the distraction. So, in terms of planning to show up and planning to create content, I would say, reduce the how to and dial up on the, I know you want this result. I've worked with Sarah. We achieved this. We did it in 3 weeks. Do you want that too? So it's a bit more direct. It's a bit more, a lot of the time these people are results driven, ambitious people. So, and they've got the disposable income to pay for the service. So there's nothing wrong with being direct with them. They like it that way. So drop the fluff and dial up on the direction, I would say.
Cool. Give me a couple of examples of kind of posts that you've written in that context, because I kind of understand the framework, I understand the concept behind it, but I'd love to hear what that looks like in practice.
Yeah. So for example, using maybe like an Instagram carousel, where you get a number of posts to use, you get up to 10 to use. So I would say make the front cover, rather than how you could build a 6-figure business, make it, do you want to build a 6-figure business in the next 30 days? And so that first slide is going to make them go, oh, that sounds certain. That sounds direct. It gives me a time frame to work on. Now, we all know you can't build 100K in 30 days, but they can make the decision to start, and so that first slide gets them to the point where they want to stop scrolling, they want to flick through. And so then what I would be doing on that second and third and fourth slide is I would be saying, do you want to start building your 100K business in the next 30 days, like Rebecca, who worked with me on her business model, and we were able to make 20K from her $200 investment? Do you want to get 12 calls booked in the diary in a 3-week period like Lauren? And this is coming off the tongue because these are posts I've written recently.
Yeah.
so it's very, very clear and succinct and direct that this result is up for grabs if they're prepared to trust themselves, because the high ticket buyer, they already trust themselves. So as long as you show them that you can be trusted too, and the result can be trusted, then you can drive these people into your DMs and towards your call booking link much, much more quickly than you can a lower ticket buyer.
Okay, interesting. I'm always curious about when content is a big part of anybody's strategy. One of the things that I always hear, and then I can even say from my own experience, is that I always feel that it's tough to sort of fit in the content posting through the day, or kind of build that sort of content calendar, know what I'm going to post. And then I always end up going I'll plan 4 posts out and then I forget about it. And then I don't do it for a while.
Yeah.
So how do you map that out and stay consistent when content is so important?
Well, I come from the train of thought that we don't need a niche. We don't need to try to box ourselves in, that what we really need is an offer that we are super excited to sell. And when you have that offer that you are really excited to sell, content becomes a lot easier, because the offer is your sort of top level thing to get clear on in your mind. So once you're clear on your offer, and you then ask yourself, well, what type of person would get the most value from that offer? That gives you your niche. And then when you understand exactly who that's for, then you can start to say, well, how are these people feeling right now? How would they feel when they've achieved the result that I'm promising through my offer? And therefore that dictates the content that you would then go off and create. So within that offer that you want to sell, you'd be asking yourself, who have I created a great result with? Whose story can I tell? What case studies can I share? How can I show up and really show this high ticket buyer that, the 3 S's are covered, that there is a speed of result. And I can clearly give them a case study to show that there is simplicity, because I'm not going to give them this drawn out, apply now, and then I'm going to book a call with you, and then I'm going to get you to do this. And they don't want all that. They just want to be told, book a call, let's get aligned, and if I like you, I'll buy from you. And then there's the security, the third S, which again comes back to that social proof, and you showing up with the energy of certainty, with the energy of confidence, and of, I can get you this result. The only way you're not going to get the result is if you don't do the work, because I know this process works. So when it comes to content, I'm not somebody that would ever suggest to a client or anybody in my audience to spend weeks building out a content plan, because sometimes you want to feel called to sell a certain offer, and that means your content would change. And I think a lot of the time, I don't know if you feel this, Sarah, but a lot of the time in the online space, we feel that we're on this like treadmill of, I've got to churn out the content, and I've got to post because I'm expected to. We don't have to post. Nobody's expecting it. If you want to sell your offer, then you need to post. But it's the sales strategy that drives the content strategy. And a lot of the time people get the content strategy sort of the wrong way around. They think that I've got to have this big content strategy. And then when I say, and what were you trying to sell in that week? And they're like, I don't really know. Like, oh, is that why there was no call to action? Yeah. So very much so. Sales strategy always first, then content, not the other way around.
Okay, interesting. And I imagine that you're sort of finding a balance between actually making those posts and then having those conversations and doing research and all the other bits that I'm sure you have to do in your day. So how do you kind of strike that balance to make sure that you're not spending too much time, I guess, on the front end, or is there such a thing as even too much time building content?
Well, I tend not to spend a lot of time on content at all. I am, I'm a messy action kind of girl. And that means you will find typos in my content. It will not look perfect. And that's because if something looks like marketing, it gets treated like marketing. If it sounds sleazy, if it sounds like you've got a preconceived, plan for somebody, we're humans, and we want to believe that we make our own choices. So the minute that we feel that somebody's trying to force us down a path, we resist and we rebel against that a little bit, because that's what we're like as humans. So I feel that the best way that we can show up with our content is a little bit rough and ready, and a little bit like, take me as you find me, because I'm speaking from the heart. It's all I've got. I'm not here trying to hoodwink you or, be pushy or influential. I'm not trying to make you buy something that doesn't work. I'm just delivering a good, honest, genuine service based on what I know I've been able to create for myself, what I know I've been able to help other people do. And I've just built a course about how to do it, or I've got a group coaching program that gets you there. If you want that too, have a chat with me. And so the best kind of content in the world to create is video, because it's so quick and so easy to just hold up your phone and speak from the heart. Whereas if I've got to sit down and do a carousel, for example, I've got to do the graphics, I've got to download the picture, I've got to write the caption, I've got to add the hashtags. And actually, I did a live the other day, and I was live for an hour. The engagement on the live was through the roof. I could have sat there for another hour. I was having a great time, chatting to my audience, building community, speaking from the heart, being asked questions, giving an answer, showing them I know my stuff. I wasn't getting a question and then reading from a book. I know my stuff, just like you know yours, and just like they know theirs. So the best content to create is video, but I know that feels scary for a lot of people.
Definitely for a lot of people. Yeah. If you haven't done it before, I think it feels pretty vulnerable to get your face up there. So yeah, maybe start light with some of the written posts, some of the carousels, and then work your way up. Muster the courage to go for a live. You just do a quick one, right? Like, you don't have to sit there live and try to interact. You can just do a quick little video for your
For sure.
audience, leave it there and see.
Yeah, I've got a client who's had amazing success by doing a 5 at 5, 5 minutes at 5 p.m.
Nice.
And that is all she does, 5 minutes. And she calls it a 5-minute clinic. And her audience, they show up in droves to listen to what she's got to say, because it's 5 minutes. So it's not a big drain on time. And because it's 5 minutes, she's very succinct, and it works really well for her.
Interesting. That's a great idea. Yeah. Just keeping it really light and making it kind of low barrier for that prospect or that audience to get engaged. That's a great idea. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the idea of building this community. So you're building the content that is attracting the right type of high ticket customer. It's appealing to their needs. It's speaking to everything that they want. Now, how do you build that and then kind of take your community forward?
Yeah. So I've always been a really big community builder, and one of the skills that we need to, develop and feel really comfortable about to build community is the ability to ask questions and to just be naturally curious and get to know other people, not on a business level, sometimes on a personal level first. So your first question to somebody can't be, obviously as a business coach, my first question, that would be the wrong kind of question, would be, how much money do you want to make this year? Mm-hmm. That is not a first question to ask anybody. I wouldn't ask that to my best friend, let alone, a stranger that I've just met online. Some of the best ways to build community is to just remember that, yes, we're online, and yes, we're on a platform. Yes, there's a screen usually in between us, but actually people are people, doesn't matter what country, doesn't matter, man, woman, doesn't matter anything. We're just people. And to be naturally curious, to ask questions, and then to listen to the answer and ask a relevant question. The one thing that in any sales conversation or online conversation that is sure to get someone's back up is if you ask a question, they give you an answer, and then you show that you haven't listened and you go off on a different track, because you're left there thinking, did I just talk Chinese? Why? How are they not understanding me, or do they just not care? So we end up with that feeling of, they asked me a question, but they didn't really care what I had to say. So we feel undervalued. So the key thing with building community is ask questions, listen, and make people feel valued. I can't remember who said the quote now, but it's that really famous quote of, people won't remember what you said and they won't remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. So if you make somebody feel valued for being in your world, it could just be a simple voice note when somebody follows you to say, hey, I just noticed that you followed me and I wanted to welcome you to my community. It could just be that, it could just be that. So I mean, I've got a networking event tomorrow I started sort of talking about networking in my Facebook group, and it's just gone crazy. I've got almost 100 women signed up for an online networking event, which just goes to show, after a 2-year pandemic and us all working behind our screens, we are desperate for connection as humans. So it's a big factor with online selling that is often overlooked, is the ability to build a community.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. The kind of personal touches that you're talking about bringing to your audience to kind of nurture that community, because a lot of what we see, I think, with a lot of the big kind of sales influencer types that are out there, and it's predominantly LinkedIn that they would use. I mean, I think some are on the likes of Facebook and Instagram, but I think they really gravitate towards LinkedIn, is the engagement that they sort of share back with their audience is only ever in the form of like a comment or something, which I am acutely aware of the fact that that's only like driving up the engagement on their own post. Like, it's not necessarily to create a connection with that individual. It's to add another comment to the post and say, like, now it's got 10, now it's got 11, now it's got 12. But I've never seen anybody kind of going out and reaching out and making a personal connection with the people that are following them. So that's a really interesting thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the live I was saying I was doing the other day that ended up being an hour. What I was teaching was about how to do an online launch and to make it as successful as possible. And, you know, two of the biggest tips, which was getting a lot of, sort of follow-on questions from the people that were there on the live. Two of the tips were all about community building, because it was when somebody has signed up for your online masterclass or challenge or whatever your online launch event is, don't just take it that, oh, well, they're in my email list now and I'm going to serve them an automated email and that's okay, that's enough. Actually speak to them, reach out to them and say, hey, I saw that you signed up for my masterclass, really excited to deliver it. Haven't finished the slides yet though. If there is something that you specifically want to know, please feel comfortable to just voice note me back and tell me, you know, or just let me know. And that absolutely has been a game changer for my online launches. And then there's this whole concept of, you know, like the open cart period, you know, where you've made your invitation to people to work with you. And then again, you rely on an automated email sequence to do the selling. But I don't want my audience to buy from an email. I want them to buy because they want to work with me. You know, they don't work with my email, they work with me. And if they're going to come and join my 6-month accelerator, they're going to get me on a call twice a week. And so I want to get to know them and I want them to feel that I care about them. You know, whether they've just come to a free event or whether they're ready to invest, kind of doesn't matter. I just want them to feel that I care enough about them to have made that personal outreach. So one of my sort of biggest like mantras is the revenue is in the replay. So if you're going to do a video, make sure you drive the replay, and the fortune is in the follow-up. If you want to do the, you know, the high ticket launches, the big cash launches that you see people get like so excited about, they don't come because you did a great masterclass. Those big launches come because you did the follow-up. The fortune is in the follow-up, which means personal outreach again.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's not just, you create great content and then they'll come. Like maybe some will come and maybe it won't be a top priority, but if you're going out and you're nurturing these relationships, like you said, asking what they want to see on it, so making it ultra relevant to them, and then engaging with them on an ongoing basis, then those people are going to feel more committed to show up. They're going to understand that it's going to be more valuable. And it's not as simple as just creating the content and like, blasting out a newsletter and saying like, this is going to be so interesting, hope to see you there. It's much more involved than that, but obviously the payout or the return on that time is going to be huge.
Massively. And it gets so underused that it means that if you are somebody that's prepared to put in that time, you're going to stand out. You know, when people are choosing who they want to invest in and who they want to work with, it's those little things that are going to make the difference.
Mm-hmm. What are your favorite platforms for content and community? Do you use a mix of a bunch of different things, or where do you build these communities?
I'm everywhere. I've got a Facebook group with 2,300 in, and that's been gradually building over the last sort of 2.5 years. I've got my Instagram is probably my number one community. I think I've got something like 4,200 people on Instagram, and I'm not going to lie and say I know all 4,200 because I don't. But I do know a lot of them, and I do, you know, there's a lot of DM conversations. There's, you know, I know if I was to post something personal, which I did actually the other day, my inbox gets filled with people commenting on the personal, you know, side of things. So I've got, I'm really big on investing time into my Instagram community. I've got a LinkedIn community, which I started really building in 2016 after I left corporate. When I was in corporate, I didn't even know that online networking was a thing. And then I came out of corporate and was like, oh, look at all these people, they talk to each other. Whereas I'd been in that corporate bubble and just didn't even know it. I thought LinkedIn was where you go when you want to get a job, you know. And so I started building that community, and that absolutely skyrocketed my first business, LinkedIn. I've also got a TikTok account. Never thought I'd have a TikTok account, but I've, you know, I've gone there.
Yeah.
We've got Pinterest in the business. We've got YouTube.
Cool.
I've got my own podcast, and that, having my podcast, that's a really, really lovely community, because it feels very personal when somebody's, listening to you in their earpods when they're walking their dog or whatever. That, it feels like a personal connection. So yeah, I don't think there's that many platforms that we don't have a presence on, but I'm lucky that I do have a team to support me. So I don't want anybody listening to think, how on earth does she manage all of that? Because the honest answer is I don't. I don't manage all of that. I'm lucky I've got a team, but we do repurpose a lot. So, if there are any of your listeners here that are thinking, well, I do feel ready for another platform, please don't feel that you've got to then create brand new content, because you really don't. You can repurpose everything, and we leverage the whole repurposing strategy to the maximum. So for example, I will record a 20-minute video, for example, on YouTube. It might also go in my Facebook group. My team then take a transcription of that video that gets turned into a blog. Sometimes the video will get chopped up and turned into reels. The video transcription will also get turned into like captions. So there's all sorts of ways that we can like repurpose content without having to keep recreating the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And that kind of speaks to something that you brought up earlier, which was the idea that you've got your offer that you're excited about and the content comes below that. And I think your point about people kind of coming at it the other way, and they're going, how do I create as much content as possible? And then there's actually no connection to the offer. It's you can see that aligns with your kind of methodology or your philosophy there. Because if you're trying to create all brand new content, there's no way it all is completely relevant and related to that thing that you're trying to help your customers solve. Instead, you're just saying like, how can I try to speak to every single person in the world, or try to speak to a whole bunch of different problems, hoping that I'll kind of capture these people. And then it's too difficult. Like you're probably not going to be great at speaking to all of those things either. Whereas if it's your area of expertise or one thing you're great at, and then you're thinking, how can I repurpose, adjust, make new within this little bubble, you're going to be infinitely more scalable. But you're also going to be more specific in who you're targeting and your ability to sort of actually achieve that goal that you're talking about.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you. Yeah, could not agree anymore if I tried.
Do you find that a lot of the people that are on one platform or on another in terms of your community, is there a lot of crossover?
There is actually, yeah. There's more than I thought. Yeah, there is a lot of. Actually, I had a podcast competition 2 weeks ago, and the winner, I put a post out today telling the lady who won a sales coaching session with me that she won. And I put it on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and I put it in my stories and tagged her in. And I know that she's on holiday at the moment. She's away with her family. And I really noticed the order in which she responded to the tags that I'd made. It was story first, Instagram story first, then Instagram post, then Facebook post, then LinkedIn post. I just thought that was interesting, the order that she actually noticed, but yeah, to answer your question, yeah, there are a lot of people that are on more than one platform, but equally I have ladies in my sales accelerator that are like, no, I'm staying on one. I need to master one. And that's okay too. That is okay too. But, going back to what we were saying earlier about video, I've noticed a real sort of ease around creating TikToks, because I'm very committed to my Instagram stories, which are, short videos. Often I'll just go face to camera. And when you download those on your phone and upload those as TikToks, they actually do land quite well on TikTok, because TikTok's a very like raw platform. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be polished and perfect, whereas Instagram is very, very polished, very perfect. And if it isn't, you know, you'll get criticized for it. Whereas on TikTok, nobody cares if you've got no makeup on, if you've made no effort whatsoever. They don't even care if the video starts halfway through a sentence. Whereas on Instagram, that would be seen as the wrong thing to do. So I've been repurposing some of my stories from Instagram over on TikTok, and they've been getting a really good response. So that's direct repurposing, no edits needed, no fancy stuff, you know, no content manager needed, just purely making the most of every bit of content that I create.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I have a last couple of questions around people who are listening, who are now thinking like, okay, I can do this. For the people that are mostly selling themselves, so in that kind of services space, the coaches space, which I know a lot of your audience is, when do you think is the right time to kind of hire that team? When do you go from trying to do this yourself to saying like, okay, I need some of those content managers in the background to help me scale this? How do you strike that balance?
Well, always before you're ready. Always, I would say, hire team before you're ready. Because if you wait, you'll be like me. I hired team too late. You know, I remember when I hired my first person, I was nearly crying. I was nearly in tears. I was that stressed. So always do it before you're ready. And don't think that if you need to hire a team, that you need to hire somebody for like 20 hours a week, or you need to employ somebody, because you really don't. You could just hire somebody for 2 hours a week to start with, and just let that role grow and grow. So, you know, when should you do it? I would say to do it when you know that you've got a reliable offer that you're excited to sell, and around that offer, you've built clear messaging that you're very aligned with, that you know can sort of roll off the tongue, and you know that that messaging suits you, you know, like it suits you as a person, it suits the offer, and obviously it suits the ideal client that you're trying to attract. Because if you try to hire somebody to do your content before you've nailed your own message, your own vibe, somebody else is going to have a really hard time picking that up. And you're going to then critique them on whether they are helping you generate DMs, helping you generate call bookings. You're going to be like, well, I thought I would get a better return on investing in team, and actually isn't going to be their fault. It's actually going to come back to you. So I would say start before you're ready, start small, you know, build out, you know, what does, I have this like spreadsheet, which I know everybody gets really bored at the idea of a spreadsheet, but I have this spreadsheet, or I started with a spreadsheet of everything that I did. And then in the columns beside it, I marked out, what do I enjoy? What am I good at? What am I not good at? What do I hate doing? And then I allowed that to inform, where do I hire first? And it could be something that's just taking you like too long, or it could be something that you're really not good at. But either way, if you want to hire somebody for social media or for content creation, it could be 2 hours a week. It could be a really low level commitment in terms of the finances. So, you know, start before you're ready, start small, let it grow. But if it is for content writing and content creation, make sure that you've got your message really nailed down, so that that person has a fighting chance of being able to support you.
Yeah, great point. And my next question is around, if you're not selling yourself. So if you're a salesperson out there trying to build content and trying to build a community, but you're selling a product, you're selling something else on behalf of, you know, a company, how does this process change in that context?
It doesn't. In my opinion, it doesn't. And I'll tell you why. I'm sure there will be people that say, no, it has to, it must. Because if you're selling a product, you know, there's more of a brand there. And if, you know, if you're buying a product from like a bigger company, that, you know, you've got to sell the brand. And I always come down to, you know, I've been in sales over 20 years. I've sold lots of different things to lots of different people, none of which really wanted to buy it. And so I always come back to the same thing. And that is that people aren't, online, certainly, people aren't buying the product. To start with, they're buying you. If you're creating content to generate an inquiry, then they first have to buy into you, because, you know, okay, you could have a business page on LinkedIn or a page on Facebook that has a business brand behind it. But still, you want your company and your brand to have a tone of voice. You want it to represent, you know, a feeling, an emotion, because people buy with the emotional side of their brain, you know. And I think, you know, sales is very misunderstood. People think it's about pushy, persuasive, you know, language. They think it's about force and pressure, and it really isn't. It's just about solving problems. So if you're going to solve a problem for somebody, whether you're selling a product or a solution, you first got to understand the problem from their perspective, not yours. Be able to describe it from their perspective, not yours, and then show them a way that that problem can be overcome with your solution. So I honestly don't believe it is different, because all of our content should always be about our audience, not about us. And if we come from that angle, we'll generate more inquiries for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up. We've started kind of all the way back with how to write effective content that's going to bring in the right type of customer, how to build and nurture that community, and then how to take that from the angle of selling yourself or from selling for someone else, and how that is not different at all. If people want to learn more from you, Rachel, if they want to get in touch with you, where can they do that?
Like we said, everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, if they want the fastest reply, that's always going to come from my Instagram. So my Instagram handle is @mysalesmentor. No dots, no dashes, no underscores, just my sales mentor. So drop me a DM over there. Come and give me a follow. You already know I do lots of lives and do lots of teaching. So yeah, come and get hold of me over there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was, so many tactical tips here on how to do all of this stuff. It was so valuable. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. And thank you to all of you guys for joining us for another episode of the Predictable Revenue Podcast. Please, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button on YouTube so that you can be notified each week when we have great guests joining us, like Rachel, other sales leaders, other marketing leaders, revenue leaders in general that can help you build your business better, sell better, all of that good stuff. We'll catch you next time.